Hello, Rob. Welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you on today.
Hi, Lindsay. Hi, it's great to be here. Pleasure for having me on.
Yeah, nice to meet you for the first time. It's always exciting for me to meet other creators in our ESL space, English language training space. So good to have you. I'm going to start by introducing you, Rob, to our audience. So, listeners, today I have Rob Rudge on the show. Rob is an ed tech entrepreneur specializing in business English content courses and training for non native English speaking professionals. As a passionate entrepreneur with a sales and marketing edge, Rob helps businesses and individuals bridge the gap between native fluency and effective professional communication. Okay, Rob, what does that mean? What do you do? Tell us what you do in a nutshell.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, basically, we're helping non-native professionals communicate with more impact, more fluency, and more confidence, and see how that trickles into their professional lives.
Love it. And tell us about the name of your podcast. Tell us about your show, first of all.
So, yeah, I'm the host of the Business English podcast, and we're focusing on tactics and techniques and phrases for professionals to immediately deploy after hearing the show in their working environment.
Yeah, I think the key piece is immediately deploy, right, Rob?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, in the business English space, we don't have time to take 6 months to learn something new. We need to immediately go out into the working world and use what we have just learned. So, specifically today, Rob, we are talking about interviews. What is
Yeah.
your basic idea of why interviews are so tricky, so challenging?
It's a great question. I personally, it's just a personal take. I think they are one of the final frontiers for professionals.
Hmm,
We've had an explosion of sort of AI assistance in the last 18 months, which helps with documents and CV writing and covering
right.
letters. But in the interview itself, there is no assistance. It doesn't happen in real time, so it's on the professional. So it's one of those final frontiers. Um,
Yeah. Huh.
I also think they're so they are a very important point for a professional as well because it's an inflection point, I would say, in their lives. You can
Hmm.
have massive shifts in your professional and personal life through a successful interview, changes in location, finances, social life, everything. So interviews have a profound effect on us, I think.
Ooh, I like those 2 points. In an interview, there's no place to hide, right?
Yeah,
AI is really prominent. We can rewrite our resume with AI, probably. We can
yeah,
rewrite a cover letter, but we cannot hide behind AI when we get into that interview. And on top of that, it could be the most consequential 30 minutes of your life. So not to make the stakes any higher, but
that's it. That's it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big deal. Okay. Okay. I like this. So we're setting the stage. Interviews matter. Then, broadly, what is your philosophy on how to succeed in an interview? And Rob, we're going to get into your 3 tips, but is there any
Sure.
overarching philosophy that would summarize your approach?
Yeah. I would say about prior planning and preparation prevents poor performance. I think it's like six
A lot of
P's or
Pete.
something. Yeah. Um, and that's exactly it. Sun Tzu quotes, I don't want to butcher it, but something like all battles are won before they're fought,
Ooh,
sort of thing. And if you prepare for an interview, you really increase the chances of being successful within that interview, predicated on your preparation time, your preparation style. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, Lindsay.
yeah, I agree. So preparation is key. Everything else can drop off, but if you have the preparation, you are then able to be present, another P word, right?
That's
And
it.
and make it happen, make the connection. At All Ears English, we really promote human connection. It's all about human connection for us. So if the preparation has been done, it's just you and the interviewer connecting. So, Rob, I would love to hear 3 key
Sure.
actionable tips that our listeners could take away to how to make that interview successful, those consequential 30 minutes. What would be your first tip of how we can do it?
Yeah, I think we're using up all the P words in English.
I
The first
know.
one I would say is profiling.
Okay.
You've got to profile in order to have a good idea of the company or role that you're interviewing for. There are countless individuals that go into an interview with a loose understanding of the company or the role that they're interviewing for.
Hmm.
And the way that we teach our clients is to break it down in a grammar way,
Mhm.
which is the past, the present, and the future,
Okay.
where you're looking at a company's past. What's their origin story? What do they hold dear?
Mhm.
Um, and then moving it into the present, looking at what's going on now. What are their current operations and projects? Are they mentioned in the media? What's happening right now? And then into the future, where do they want to be in 6 months? Will the role that you're interviewing for have adapted or evolved within that 6, 12, or 18-month period? And the magic point here is to position yourself as the enabler, as the stepping stone between the present and the future. And
Mhm.
once you have that good understanding of the profile of the company or role, you can talk to those points in the interview.
Oh, 100%. I love that framework. The past, the present, and the future, and positioning yourself right as the bridge between the
Yes.
present and the future. And you become, in the interviewer's mind, a part of the future of the company. Also, as a business owner, very small business, but a business, the
Yeah.
idea of someone coming in and knowing a little bit about the history of a company is of my company is very profound, right? It kind of
Yeah.
helps you relax and say, this person really cares. They're not just here for themselves or their own means, their salary. They know what's happened in the past because even, companies that have been around for a few years, there's a history to that company, right, Rob?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There's a history to it, and they have a vision, and understanding that vision and stepping into whatever they would like you to be is an excellent value proposition from your
Yeah.
perspective if you're going for that job.
Yeah. And one side question there related to that,
Sure.
if how can we find, because it's not always directly on the website where this company wants to go. If we can't quite build the whole picture in our minds before we get into the interview, are there certain probing questions we can ask to then place ourselves between the present and the future? Or how do we find this information out?
Yes, an excellent, excellent question. The idea of looking at adjacent businesses, no business is linear. Sorry,
Hmm.
no business is by itself in an industry. For example, if you
Yeah.
were looking at e-commerce, for example, you could look at adjacent e-commerce businesses and see who's further ahead, and potentially you can do some looking into the crystal ball and seeing where they'd like to be in the future.
100%. That makes sense. So look at the industry, look at where their competitors are potentially going, look at disruptive technology that's entering their space, where AI is entering every space, probably including our space as well.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
look at how you can place yourself right in the middle of that to move the company forward,
Yeah.
utilizing that technology, right? Not working against it. Okay. I like that. So that would be the first tip, Rob. Profile, past, present, future.
Yes.
What would be your second tip? Mhm.
This one's not beginning with P, thankfully.
Okay, good.
So we have examples. Going into an interview prepared with siloed or grouped examples. And what I mean by this is you will probably be asked a number of questions within a category: greatest achievement, failure, have you ever had to deliver bad news? And there are about 6 or 7 groups of questions that you can reliably prepare yourself for, and having a good idea of how to answer these in the moment under the heat of the interviewer's gaze is a good idea, because
Right.
as you're in an interview, the stress levels are up, and your mind can go blank. So really drilling these examples, spaced repetition, all the stuff we used to learn vocabulary,
Mhm.
drilling systems, developing that recall is really important. So
Mm.
thinking back to the first point about profiling the company, you're starting to align these two things. You're looking at their future projections, and you're looking at your CV and past experience, and you
Mhm.
can now start to develop very relevant examples that slot nicely
Okay.
into the interviewer's
Yeah.
sheet.
So there is a level of forethought in preparation here, of strategy, of alignment, making sure your answers are obviously they are honest, they're clear, but maybe you have a number of strengths and you could choose any of them. You're going to choose the one that aligns with placing yourself again in that present to future position for the company. I like that. Do you think that I'm not sure what you think about this, Rob, the questions, those buckets of common questions are different across the UK, the US, Canada, Australia, other English
Yeah.
speaking markets? Do you think they're different or do you think they're the same, similar?
I think at a general level, they're
Mhm.
probably rather similar. Have you been in a difficult situation at work? Have you broken bad news? But then down at the tactical level, the what you were doing may differ. The essence of the question though will probably be the same: friction, difficulty, teamwork, leadership, all this stuff. You could probably group into about 6 or 7 different categories.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then, of course, probably they vary somewhat by industry too, and I know that Silicon Valley became
Yeah.
famous for kind of crazy questions like, "If you were an
That's
animal, what animal would you be?" Or just
Yeah. What would
intelligence
make
tests,
you?
Rubik's Cube, solve this Rubik.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm sure it depends on what industry you're in as well. Okay. I love that. So come up with your siloed examples.
That's
Common
it.
one here in the US at least is, what is your weakness? And that is always kind of a bit of a mind trip to figure out how to answer that. Any thoughts on how you approach that question? And is that
Yeah.
one of the buckets in the UK, would you say? Yes?
It would be, yeah. Your strengths
Mhm.
and weaknesses are definitely. People call it a cliche question, and
Yeah.
I
Sure.
think the weakness question is a really important one, because we've had clients before that categorically say, "Well, I don't have any weaknesses," and
Mm.
I think that's a really poor answer, because it shows a
Agreed.
lack of self awareness and all
Yes.
this other stuff, ego challenges. And
Yes.
so there should always be an answer, but I always say it should be a positive negative, not something like, well, I really hate working with people. It needs to be something manageable for the
Yeah.
company. Like, I'm a perfectionist, it's slow, that can slow me down.
Mhm.
And then with anything negative that is displayed in an interview, I would always say that you must balance it. So I can be a perfectionist, it slows me down, but I am now setting deadlines. So you're
Right.
balancing this negativity in the interview.
Right. So not just an awareness that of the weakness, but actively doing something and that level of self-awareness to fix this issue or to make it more of an adaptive skill for the company, a skill that will help the company. I love that idea.
That's it. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay. Love it, Rob. What would be your
Yeah.
third tip for us today?
The third one, in chronological order, are the questions at the end of the interview. So something that goes a little bit like, Lindsay, thanks for your time today. Do you have any questions for me or the panel? This is a
Mhm.
magic moment in an interview, and the answer is always yes. It is never
Yeah.
no. You should always have a question for the interviewing panel,
Yeah.
and this question needs to be something that shows you have done your research, something that shows that you are interested in the role. So we have this mnemonic ask. So it needs to be about the role. It needs to show interest in personal development and demonstrate knowledge, ASK,
Mm.
to really craft a good question. Because it's essentially them being in control, the interviewer or the panel being in control for the entire interview, which can be between 45 minutes and 90 minutes, I think is the length of the average professional interview. And
Mhm.
then right at the end, they hand you the microphone before
Yeah.
you walk out the door. And I think it's a really good position to be in. So craft the question, and it can save a dodgy interview as well, a good quality question to finish.
Right. Do you typically recommend that people go with the questions they've crafted ahead of time or take a chance and come up with something on that they've developed throughout the interview? What do you think is more
Ooh,
advised?
that's a
Depends
great,
on
yeah.
mm,
I would go with something that you have taken the time to research
mhm,
beforehand. Again, the origin story or something into the future. Looking back through the company's history and asking maybe how that decision was made, or how could you better learn from these situations. It just demonstrates that you're looking again. You're reinforcing that you're paying attention closely and you care about
right.
this interview.
And that you've done that research prior to the interview, right? You've gone the extra mile, and believe it or not, a lot of people don't, right? They
Yeah,
don't do these things, and just
yes,
doing these simple things will set you apart, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed, agreed.
I love that, Rob. Any final piece of advice for our students, our listeners who may be applying for a job 100% in English, maybe in an English speaking country, or maybe it is a position that will require a lot of English,
Right.
within their company, in their home country?
Sure. I think you said it right at the start, actually, Lindsay. It was about alignment. is just make sure that you're aligning yourself in a very authentic way with the job. If you
Mhm.
There's a lot of bad advice out there about memorizing
Mm.
your phrases and things, and if you have a bad day, and if you're relying on your memorization, you're going to fall off maybe with the stress and a
Yeah.
difficult question. But aligning yourself with the company, aligning yourself with your own experience, and bringing those two together is a very powerful position to go into an interview with.
That is such a good point, Rob. I mean, we can tell when someone is speaking from the head, a line that they've just memorized, rote memorization, versus the heart, where they actually believe in the mission of the company and they feel it on that deeper level. And it doesn't really matter exactly how they word it, they're going to get the message across. Right, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree
Yeah.
more, Lindsay. Brilliant.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rob, for being on the show today. Can you tell us a little bit more about your podcast, where we can find you, and how often you publish episodes?
Sure. We're pushing out episodes on a weekly basis, normally on a Sunday evening, Monday morning, depending on where you are in the world, ready for the work week ahead.
Mhm.
We're at the businessenglishpodcast.com, and you can find us on most of the distribution channels out there.
All right, good stuff. Well, thanks for being on, and we hope to have you on All Ears English again soon, Rob. Take care.
Great stuff. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.